My own brother didn't invite me to Christmas because I was a simple worker, so I told everyone a big secret. Hello, Reddit. I'm a 32-year-old man, opting to use a throwaway account since my brother occasionally browses here, and I'd prefer he didn't stumble upon this. Then again, at this juncture, I'm nearing the point of indifference. I've wrestled with the decision to share this narrative for some time, but the events of the past year have compelled me to unburden myself. Perhaps my experience will resonate with someone facing a similar predicament, encouraging them to assert themselves as I eventually did. I've been a long-time lurker but a first-time poster, so I apologize in advance for the lengthy exposition. This has been festering for years, and I need to articulate it. It was one of those frigid December evenings where everything feels suspended in ice. I had just completed a grueling 10-hour shift at the manufacturing plant where I've diligently served as a maintenance supervisor for the past 8 years. The work isn't glamorous, but it provides a decent living $72,000 annually with overtime, which allows me to live comfortably in our modest Midwestern town. Upon entering my unassuming 2-bedroom apartment, nothing extravagant, but it's mine, I tossed my keys onto the counter, collapsed onto the couch, and was about to catch the basketball game when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom: "We're so sorry you won't be joining us for Christmas this year. We'll miss you." What on earth? I stared at my phone, utterly perplexed. I hadn't declined any Christmas invitation, in fact, I hadn't even received one. Scrolling through my messages, I confirmed there was no oversight on my part. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach, as if I'd been sucker punched. Without hesitation, I called Mom. She answered on the second ring, her voice laced with an artificial cheerfulness that immediately raised red flags. "Hi, Nolan," she greeted me. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I replied. "What do you mean I'm not coming to Christmas?" "I never said that." I wasn't even aware plans had been made. An awkward pause ensued before she responded, "Oh, I thought Emmett mentioned it to you." Of course, it was Emmett, my older brother by 3 years, the family's golden child who could do no wrong. He could set the neighborhood ablaze, and our parents would laud his entrepreneurial spirit or some such nonsense. Meanwhile, I'd be chastised for not visiting often enough, despite living 45 minutes away, whereas he resided in the same town as our parents. "Well, he didn't," I said, striving to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" Another protracted silence before she finally admitted, "It's just a small gathering this year. Emmett and Lila thought it might be simpler to keep it intimate with just their kids." "Simpler?" I echoed, my confusion mounting. "What does that even mean?" "You should talk to Emmett," she suggested, clearly eager to extricate herself from the conversation. So, I did. And that's when everything changed. A bit of background on Emmett and me: I'm 32, he's 35. Growing up, he was always the bright one, securing admission to State University while I attended community college. He married Lila when they were both 24, and they had their first child at 25, followed by 2 more in quick succession. On the surface, they epitomized the picture-perfect family. In contrast, I dated occasionally, prioritized my career, and climbed the ranks from the shop floor to management. No kids, no wife, just a stable job and a comfortable life. Yet, in our family's eyes, that rendered me the unsuccessful one. What they failed to acknowledge was that Emmett's marketing agency had been teetering on the brink of success for 7 years, or that I'd loaned him over $45,000 in the past 3 years alone. I even covered the $4,800 cost of his eldest child's braces when their insurance fell short. That same night, I called Emmett, my hands trembling as I dialed his number. He answered after several rings, sounding nonchalant, as if he hadn't just excluded me from our family Christmas. "Nolan," he greeted me. "What's up, bro?" "I just got off the phone with Mom," I began, striving for calm. "She says I'm not coming to Christmas this year. Care to explain?" A silence stretched between us before he chuckled, a low, condescending sound that ignited my anger. "Yeah, well, we figured it'd be better if you set this one out," he said. "Christmas is supposed to be festive, you know? And no offense, but your negativity is a real downer. The kids don't need to be around that energy." "What does that mean?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Come on, Nolan," he said dismissively. "You're a 32-year-old factory worker still living in an apartment. It's kind of pathetic. My kids are getting older now, and frankly, you're not the kind of role model they need. Christmas is no place for underachievers." I froze, his words hanging in the air like a slap to the face. My own brother had just labeled me an underachiever. "Wow," I finally managed, my voice icy. "That's how you see me? As an underachiever?" "You said it, not me," he retorted. "Look, don't take it personally. It's just better this way." "Better for who?" I wanted to scream, but instead, I took a deep breath. Okay, I said. Okay, he repeated, clearly surprised. Yeah. If that's how you feel, I won't argue. But just so we're clear, don't expect me to fund your lifestyle anymore. No more loans, no more paying for your kids' expenses, no more helping with Lila's organic food business, no more covering your mortgage when you're between clients. You're on your own. He laughed again, but this time it sounded nervous. You're bluffing, Emmett said after a moment, though his voice didn't carry the confidence it once had. You'll find out soon enough, I replied, and then I ended the call before I could second-guess myself. I sat in silence on the couch, the television still paused on the basketball game I'd never started. A rush of emotions swirled inside me, disappointment, anger, disbelief, but above all, there was something I hadn't expected, peace. For the first time in years, I had drawn a line. I had said no. No to being taken advantage of. No to sacrificing my time and hard-earned money for someone who barely respected me. No to a role I never asked for. You see, for the past decade, I'd been the family's silent foundation, the dependable one. The one who didn't need help. The one who always had things under control. And because of that, no one ever stopped to ask how I was doing. They just called when the water heater broke or the rent was due. And I'd always shown up. Quietly. Predictably. I had paid off Emmett's $112,000 in credit card debt, bought Kyle's $2,300 hockey gear last season, and even covered a $3,700 marriage enrichment retreat for him and Lila, the kind of trip that came with oceanfront views and group therapy and linen shirts. All while I worked back-to-back holiday shifts to make up for it. And now I wasn't even good enough to be invited to Christmas? No. Not this year. I spent that Christmas day with a couple of coworkers. A few of us single guys got together to grill, drink sodas, and watch football. It was simple. It wasn't what I'd grown up with, but it was honest. And most importantly, it came without strings. I didn't hear much from Emmett after that. But I noticed the signs, subtle at first. Jessica, my sister-in-law, started posting vague social media updates about learning to live with less and redefining what family support really means. One status mentioned, not so subtly, that some relatives talk about family, but don't act like it. I didn't respond. Then came the texts in the family group chat. Little things. Emmett would make snide comments when someone posted a vacation photo or mentioned a new purchase. Must be nice when you only have yourself to take care of, he wrote once after I posted about a new coffee machine I treated myself to. I ignored him. But in March, the silence finally broke in a more direct way. One evening, I was tidying up my apartment when my phone rang. It was Lila. Nolan, she said, her voice unusually sweet. How are you? I'm good, I replied slowly. How are you? Well, she sighed, things have been a little tight lately. You know how it is with 3 kids. Emmett's business has had a rough start to the year, and we were wondering if you could help us out, just this once. Kyle's tournament fees are due, and it's been hard making ends meet. I stood silently, letting her words hang in the air. I had expected this call. I just didn't expect it so soon. I'm sorry, Lila, I said evenly. I thought Emmett would have told you I'm not able to help financially anymore. She paused. And just like that, the tone changed. Really, she said, with a clipped edge. You've always helped us. It's not for us, it's for the kids. Don't you care about your nieces and nephews? You're going to punish them because you and Emmett had some silly argument? It stung hearing her bring the kids into it. I did care about them. I still do. But I couldn't keep setting myself on fire to keep their parents warm. Of course I care about them, I said calmly. But I can't be the one who steps in every time. Kevin needs to figure this out on his own. Figure it out, she snapped. You have no idea how hard it is to raise a family. You just have to worry about yourself. You have a stable job, no kids, no real responsibilities. That may be, I said, but I've already given you over $45,000 in the past 3 years alone. That doesn't include gifts, or the times I watched the kids so you two could have date nights, or the days I left work early to help you move furniture or fix your kitchen sink. I've done my part, Lila. So you're just going to abandon family now, she said coldly. After everything we've shared? We are still family, I said. But being family doesn't mean I keep financing someone else's poor decisions. The line went quiet. Then, just before she hung up, she muttered, selfish. The word echoed in my head long after the call ended. Was I being selfish? Was I punishing the kids? Was I overreacting? For a few days, I wrestled with that. But deep down, I knew I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was protecting myself. I was breaking a pattern. That following week, things escalated. It was Emmett this time. He called late one night. His voice was bristling with frustration. "Thanks a lot, man," he said sarcastically. "Heard you turned Lila down. Kyle's gonna miss the whole season now because you won't open your wallet." "I'm not responsible for that," I replied. "I've told you this already." "You think you're some kind of saint, don't you?" he snapped. "Sitting up there in your little apartment, acting like you've got it all figured out. But I know you, Nolan. I remember college. I remember that DUI you tried to bury. Want me to bring that back up?" I went cold. Yes, I made that mistake. Over a decade ago. And I'd been honest with him about it. Trusted him with it. It was one of the few times I'd ever leaned on him. "And that girl from your job, what would your manager think about that if it got out?" he added. He wasn't asking for help. He was trying to blackmail me. I took a long breath, steadying myself. "I'm not playing this game, Emmett," I said firmly. "You don't get to bully me into helping you anymore. Grow up." I ended the call. The next few days, I half expected to hear from him again. But instead, it was Dad who called. "Your brother's in trouble," he said. "He told us you won't help. They're behind on their mortgage." "I know," I said. "Emmett already called. Can't you just help him this one time?" I sighed. "I've helped him this one time more times than I can count." "You've always been the responsible one, Nolan," Dad said. "That's exactly the problem, Dad. You all think that because I can handle things, I should have to." He didn't respond. Just a quiet sigh. I knew I had to talk to them. Face to face. It was time they knew the whole story, not just the bits and pieces Emmett had spun. And so, I invited them to a nearby diner. What happened next would change everything. We met at a quiet diner just off the highway. It was one of those places that had been around for decades, the kind with vinyl booths, faded photos on the wall, and bottomless coffee. Mom and Dad were already seated when I arrived. They looked tired. Dad was stirring his cup absent-mindedly. Mom glanced up when I walked in, gave me a faint smile, then quickly looked away like she already sensed where the conversation was headed. "Hi, Nolan," she said softly. "Thanks for meeting us." "Let's get to it," I said, sitting across from them. "Emmett told me you're on his side. About everything." "We're not on anyone's side," Mom said quickly. "We just want peace in the family." "Peace?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice level. "Is that what you call it when your son tells me I'm not welcome at Christmas? When he insults me, calls me a burden to the family, and threatens to dig up old mistakes from college?" Dad shifted in the booth. He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't interrupt. "I know Emmett's been under pressure," I said. "But that doesn't give him permission to treat me like an outsider." "Nolan, he's going through a lot," Mom said, folding and unfolding her napkin. "His business is struggling. The kids need things. He's trying." "For how long?" I asked. "His business has been struggling for almost a decade. Meanwhile, I've been working 60-hour weeks, saving, building my career, and loaning him money every time he says he's close to turning a corner." "Has he told you how much I've given him?" They were silent. "Over $45,000, I said quietly. "That's not an estimate. That's real. That includes Kyle's braces, hockey fees, Lila's food venture, multiple mortgage payments, and even that retreat you thought his agency paid for." Mom's hand went to her mouth. "He told us, he said it was just temporary. He said he was paying you back. He hasn't paid me a single dime." I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and opened a spreadsheet I'd built over the years. Dates, amounts, reasons, every transfer, every "I'll pay you Friday," every time I covered a bill because they forgot it was due. I slid the phone across the table. They stared at it for a long time, scrolling slowly. "This isn't everything," I added. "But it's enough." Dad finally looked up. "We didn't know." "You didn't ask," I said. And that's been the story of my life with this family. There was a long silence. The clatter of dishes and silverware from the kitchen filled the space between us. "I understand why you helped him," I continued, my voice a little softer. "He's your firstborn. He's always had the bigger dreams, the charm, the potential. But potential without responsibility isn't sustainable. I've been helping him float for years, and all it's done is make him feel entitled." Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but I kept going. "And the thing is, I don't blame him entirely. He asks because he knows he can. And you've let him, you've encouraged it. You've told me how proud you are that I'm responsible. That I'm independent. But do you know what that actually means? More silence. It means I've been the safety net. The invisible foundation. The one who's expected to absorb the impact when things fall apart. Nolan, Dad said quietly. We thought you were okay. I am okay. But that doesn't mean I haven't needed help too. I just stopped asking after the 5th time you said no while saying yes to Emmett. Mom looked down at the table. Her hands trembled slightly. I'm not asking you to take sides, I said. I'm asking you to recognize what's happened. To stop pretending this is just a misunderstanding or a clash of personalities. Emmett made choices. Repeatedly. And he was never asked to face the consequences because you knew I'd clean up the mess. I didn't know it was that bad, Mom whispered. It's worse, I said. He's in debt. Deep. Maxed credit cards, unpaid business loans, 3 months behind on the mortgage. He's not on the verge of success, he's barely treading water. Dad leaned back, processing everything. What do you want us to do? I don't want anything from you, I said firmly. I'm not here to ask you to stop helping him. That's your decision. But if you continue to fund him, if you keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not, don't expect me to play along. I paused. I'm not the villain here. I've done more than I should have. And all I got for it was exclusion. They didn't argue. They didn't offer hollow apologies either. They just listened. That was enough for now. I stood up and gathered my coat. I'll always care about this family. But if you want me to be part of it, it has to be on equal terms. No more double standards. Dad nodded slowly. Understood. As I walked back to my car, I didn't feel victorious. There was no satisfaction in having proven anything. But there was clarity. This had never been about money. It had always been about recognition. Respect. Fairness. For the first time in years, I had stopped making excuses for my brother. And for the first time, I think my parents saw me not as the backup plan, but as a person who had quietly kept the family from falling apart. They just hadn't noticed until now. In the weeks after that diner conversation, things started shifting, slowly at first, like a boat turning in deep water. My parents didn't say much, but they also stopped asking me to just give it one more try. That alone told me they were finally beginning to see what I'd been saying. Meanwhile, Emmett's world started coming apart. The first visible crack came in the form of a Facebook post from Lila. A carefully filtered photo of their youngest playing with secondhand toys, captioned with a vague but pointed message, "Sometimes life forces you to simplify." Thankful for the strength to adjust, even when support disappears. I didn't comment. Then came the more obvious signs. Kyle, their eldest, was pulled from the elite travel hockey team, the one with a $4,000 annual fee I'd covered for years. Maddie stopped attending her gymnastics classes. Their spring break trip was suddenly rescheduled indefinitely. Still, I said nothing. Not out of spite, but out of resolve. It was working, not for them, maybe, but for me. I was finally detaching from the guilt. From the expectations. From the belief that saying no meant I didn't love my family. But the turning point came in early summer. I got the call I knew was coming. "Hey, Nolan," Emmett said. His voice was flatter than usual. No preamble, no forced friendliness. Just quiet desperation. "Listen, we're in trouble. The bank sent us a notice. If we don't catch up on the mortgage, we're going to lose the house." I didn't say anything. I just let him speak. "We're behind 3 months," he continued. It's bad. I know I've asked for a lot. And I know I've let you down. But if you could help just this once, $7,800. That's what we need to get caught up." I waited a beat, then said as calmly as I could, "That sounds like a problem for you to solve, Emmett." "Not me." There was a pause on the other end. "These are your niece and nephews, Nolan," he said. "They need a place to live." "They do," I replied. "And that's your job and Lila's. You're their parents. You made the decisions that led here. You're just going to let this happen? You chose this house. You chose the car, the business, the expenses." "I didn't." "I'll pay you back," he said, a phrase I'd heard dozens of times before. "You still owe me over $45,000, I said quietly. "You've never paid a cent of it back." He didn't argue. Just sighed a long, defeated breath that made me wonder if this was the first time he truly felt the weight of his choices. I don't have anyone else to call, he said. Maybe it's time you start calling a financial counselor, I said, and ended the call. A week later, Dad called. Emmett says you wouldn't help, he began. He's right, I said. And I won't. He might lose the house. He should have thought of that before he leased a luxury SUV and funded a failing business for 7 years. I know you're frustrated, son, Dad said, but you've always been the one who holds things together. That's exactly the problem, I said. And I'm not doing it anymore. Dad didn't argue after that. I think even he was beginning to feel the exhaustion of pretending Emmett's struggles were temporary. By midsummer, it was official. Emmett and Lila sold their house at a loss. The proceeds weren't enough to cover the debt, so they had to move into a modest rental in a different neighborhood, a much smaller place. Kyle and Maddie had to change schools, and the private lessons were over. They returned their leased SUV. Lila's organic food venture quietly folded. It was painful to watch. I didn't celebrate it. But I didn't interfere either. Instead, I focused on my own life. For the first time in years, I had financial margin. I could breathe. I took a weekend trip to the mountains, signed up for a certification course that had been on my back burner, and started spending more time with people who didn't see me as a walking bank account. And then, just a few months after the fallout, something unexpected happened. I got an email from the corporate office at work. The VP of operations was retiring early. They were looking internally to fill the role, and my name had come up. The offer: relocate to headquarters in Chicago, take on a senior management position with a 6-figure base salary, bonuses, equity, and a level of decision-making influence I'd always hoped to reach. It was the kind of opportunity I'd worked toward for years, without ever really believing it would land in front of me. I accepted. But I didn't tell my family right away. I waited. Not out of malice, but because this was mine. I needed to feel it, celebrate it, before sharing it with people who had only ever half seen me. That fall, we had a small family dinner for Mom's birthday. Emmett and Lila were there. They looked humbled. No expensive clothes. No big stories. Just quiet, tired people doing their best to appear normal. Over dessert, Mom turned to me. How's work, Nolan? I smiled. Actually, I have some news. Everyone looked up. I got a new position, VP of Operations. I'll be moving to Chicago at the end of the year. There was a beat of silence. Then applause. Mom clapped, eyes watering. Dad nodded proudly. Even Lila managed a smile. Emmett just stared. VP, he said, clearly stunned. That's incredible. What does it pay? I raised an eyebrow. Enough. He gave a weak laugh. No, seriously. What's the number? Over 120 base. Bonuses on top. Stock options. Full benefits. He blinked. Wow. That's huge. Later, while helping Mom clean up in the kitchen, Emmett pulled me aside. Hey, he said. I know things haven't been great between us. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. That's a big deal. I nodded, waiting for what I figured was coming next. And, with your new salary and all, the kids have been having a tough time adjusting. I was wondering if maybe you could help with. I held up a hand. Emmett. Listen closely. I will never, and I mean never, give you another dollar. Not a loan, not a gift, not even Girl Scout cookie money. That part of our relationship is over. He looked stunned. But we're family. Exactly. And family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. Family doesn't exclude someone, insult them, and then ask for help. He nodded slowly. I was wrong about all of that, he said. I was jealous. You were moving up, and I was sinking. It was easier to mock your job than admit mine was failing. That might be the most honest thing you've ever said to me. So, can we start over? I thought for a moment. We can be brothers, I said. But we'll never do business again. He nodded again, this time with a little more understanding. I can live with that. 6 months into my new position, I was thriving in a way I'd never really experienced before. The Chicago move had gone smoothly. My new apartment wasn't flashy, but it had a view of the city skyline and an office nook I dreamed about back in my cramped 2-bedroom. Work was challenging, rewarding, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being seen not as the person who held everything together behind the scenes, but as a leader with vision and influence. My team respected me. My superiors trusted me. I'd even earned my first quarterly bonus ahead of schedule. After years of steady, quiet labor, the recognition felt surreal and earned. Meanwhile, back home, Emmett and Lila were slowly adjusting to a more modest lifestyle. Their rental was in a quieter part of town. The cars were practical now. The kids had switched to public school and were surprisingly okay with it. No more travel leagues or gymnastics tournaments, no curated vacation posts. Just regular life, finally lived within their means. And then came the 2nd December after the fallout, just over a year since that text from Mom had told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas. This time, she called me directly. Her tone was cheerful, but I could tell it was layered with caution. "Hi, Nolan," she said. "I was thinking we should all get together for Christmas this year." Everyone. Just like before. I hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Who's hosting?" "We were thinking our house," she said. "Simple dinner, just family. No pressure." I agreed, cautiously. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was in a different place now. I had boundaries. I had clarity. And I had nothing to prove. When I arrived at the house that Christmas Eve, the atmosphere was different. Quieter. Calmer. More humble. There were no elaborate gift towers under the tree. No gleaming electronics wrapped in gold paper. Just modest gifts and a focus on being together. It was the kind of holiday I hadn't experienced since we were kids, before expectations and comparisons had complicated everything. After dinner, when the kids were playing quietly in the living room, Mom pulled me aside. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. "Not just for coming, but for everything." I looked at her, waiting. "We see things more clearly now," she continued. "It took us too long, and I'm sorry for that. You've done so much for this family, things we should have acknowledged a long time ago." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a grand apology. But it was enough. Later that night, as we were cleaning up, Dad patted me on the back and said, "We're proud of you, son. You've built something strong. And you did it without shortcuts." I smiled and nodded. It meant more than I expected. Even Emmett, who had mostly kept to himself throughout the evening, came over just before I left. "No asks," he said quickly, holding his hands up. "Just wanted to say Merry Christmas. And thanks for being patient with me." I nodded. "Merry Christmas, Emmett." As I drove back to my hotel, just visiting for the weekend before flying back to Chicago, I realized something I hadn't fully processed until that moment. The real victory wasn't in the money I'd kept. It wasn't in the title or the salary or even the newfound respect from my family. It was in the fact that I no longer needed any of it to feel whole. I had stopped trying to earn my place at the table. I had stopped trying to prove I was enough. I had chosen peace over resentment. Boundaries over guilt. Self-respect over validation. And somehow, in choosing all of that, I finally found what I'd been searching for all along, a version of family that didn't drain me, but met me where I stood, without conditions. I was no longer the fixer. I was no longer the fallback. I was simply Nolan. Standing on his own 2 feet and, for the first time, truly free. If you're in a similar situation, just know this: boundaries don't mean cutting people off. They mean honoring your worth. They mean stepping out of roles you never signed up for and reclaiming your identity. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is say, "This far, and no further." Because the life you build when you stop shrinking for others? That's where the real story begins. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.